If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet, we are back and I can tell you we have a lot of people lined up. It's exciting to me. I know I say that all the time, people laugh about it, even my wife. She always says to me, I'll come walking out and I say, this is the best episode ever. This is how you said it last time as well. But you know what? I do get excited to speak to these people. They are fantastic people. I'm obviously, I come from the police and I had a wake-up call. I had a wake-up call to see what the army produced. I'm really impressed. I should be impressed and so should you. Now we're speaking the English here. We speak it deliciously, sort of. The reason for that is about a week or two ago, we had Sarel Kutsie on in Afrikaans. He was one of a few tank gunner aces in the SADF. He told a fantastic story, but he was speaking Afrikaans. I was actually insisting on it. That day I just wanted to hear my own language, And so, I got letters from across the world for people saying to me, Chris, you're not funny. You have to redo it in English. Now, I'm still trying to get Sarel to think about that part. So when we have this fellow here in front of us, Colonel Paul Louw, and he said to me, I can try and do it in English and sometimes in Afrikaans. I said, that's on, sir, no problem. You're welcome here. So I have to say to you, Colonel, very welcome. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you, appreciate your time. And I know you come from a military family. Perhaps you can explain that to us, your military family, how you ended up in the army, because I know you had the most distinguished career there. So we're listening.
Chris, thank you very much for the introduction. I thought a lot about this conversation, and you know what, the guys that you had on this conversation previously are very decorated and distinguished soldiers, as you might know, and I always feel, as my good friend that's not with us anymore, Ariel Hugo, that was in Obsprotia. He always says to me, and I couldn't understand it, that I'm always this guy that I do the thing, but I don't want to take the responsibility, or I'm in Afrikaans they call it nederig. But I'm not that. I don't think I'm a nederig person. I think I'm an outgoing person that wants to do things and wants to do good. That's how we grew up, and that's how we were taught when we were small. Coming back to your question, and listen, I'm not a colonel anymore. I retired long time ago. I don't feel like any military guy anymore, although it's in our blood. But you know what? My father died when I was about 2 years old. I was born in 1960. And I heard a lot of good stories, and as you know, the people that died, you hear only the good stories. You don't hear the bad stories. And I heard a lot of good stories about my dad, and he was a respected person in the academy as well as a military man, and he loved the military. So. When I grew up and I got my my knowledge and my brain power got developed and all that, there was a few things that I learned about my father, and I call it the driving forces of my life, and some of it was military orientated, and some of it were academically orientated. And one of it was he was a commandant in those days, which is a lieutenant colonel at the end of our experience in the military. So I wanted to become a lieutenant colonel or a commandant. And I did all the courses, and I went for it, and there was not stopping me. And the other thing is, he had a degree. He had a BSc degree in geology. And I said to myself, well, if that is the case, I want also a degree. And I've studied and I've studied and I've studied. I started as a studied teaching because my mother was a teacher, and that was the way to go, studying to become a teacher. But needless to say, I would have murdered children as I did my practical. But and then I just kept on studying. I did my honors in urban geology or geography, and then I did my master's in town and regional planning. After a long, in those days, one of my platoon commanders, or also officer in the army, Koos van Rensburg, from Bloem, we were kids. We knew each other from, I think, when we started to develop. From small age, 3, I believe we met one another when we were 3, and his parents, my parents, were friends. And Koos's father was the Surveyor General of the Free State, but he was a very respected man, always very neatly dressed and well respected. And one day, Koos, I don't know if it was a talk my mother had with him, he came to me and he said, "Listen, yeah, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, Koos, really, I don't know. I'm going to the army. That was at school still. I'm going to the army to get my head cleared, and then afterwards I'll start doing something. And I did my army training, and then when I was studying, while busy studying to become a teacher, me and Koos had another talk, and Koos said, "Listen, yeah, your maths isn't that good, so I'm really not going to ask you to become a surveyor, but you must go and talk to Professor Wallace van Zyl at the University of the Free State. Prof. Wally, he was a very nice guy. Afrikaans van Zyl, but he was so English. And I went to speak to Prof. Wally, and Prof. Wally said, "Oh, that's the way you go." And I studied, and I got my degree, my master's degree in town and regional planning as well. But coming back to my early age in life is I grew up in a God-fearing household, a Christian background from both my mother and my father. My mother was part of a Jewish, German Jewish family. My great-grandfather came from Germany. He saw that in Germany things wouldn't be that great. Came to South Africa, and he started on a small piece of land on the outskirts of Koffiefontein in the Free State. He started with vegetable farming, and he did so good and well that he later on bought the family farm. And my mother grew up there. They were, I think, 13 children, and she was the only one married to call it a city boy. The others were all either got a farm as their present or their life givings. My mother, I think, she got 15,000 rand in those days. That was a lot of money. I think she could have bought a house in those days, but it doesn't matter. She used that money to go and study and become a teacher. And when my father died at a young age, she studied further to do a HOD in those days, a higher diploma in teaching. So yes, and I'm part of the 3 children, my 2 elder sisters, and I'm the youngest. So I grew up most probably, I grew up amongst women, most of the time. But you know what? People always say in life, "Oh, it's bad. Your dad died so early." You was looking most probably for those leading, or how can I say, the right ways to live your life from your dad, and tales of your dad. You missed out on your life. But you know what? In self-defense, you meet a lot of people in your life, and you meet a lot of good people. And I always say to myself, my mother always say, try and forget the bad things in your life as soon as possible and concentrate on the positive. And in the people I've met, especially in elderly men, I believe that I've seen so much positiveness that I felt myself very lucky to grow up with a lot of fathers father figures, call it that way. There's a doctor in George, Dr. Burris, and I said to my wife the other day, he retired on a small holding outside George. I said to her, listen here, we must make an appointment. I want to have a beer with Dr. Burris, because I believe he's my George father. So, if I can go back to the military again, I've got so much fathers in the military. Ep van Louw, he was, I think he ended up as a brigadier. Tony Savides, the general, Wim Dippies. He's just a major father figure in my life. But the best father figure in my life was my company commander that also ended up, I think, as a full colonel, Kasi Skuman. He was such a great guy, and I call him my military dad. But in any case, growing up with that in mind, that is the background that I believe. I grew up in Bloem, went to Willem Posma primary school, secondary school. People always ask you if you're in Bloem, were you in Grey? No, I wasn't in Grey. My father was the head boy in Grey, 1944. And I always had this joke, and I never know that my father was in matric in 1944, but there was always this joke about Italy, that there was an American program of the 4 or 5 girls, and the older one amongst them were coming from Italy, and she was always telling a story starting with way back in 1944. But in 1944, my dad was head boy there in Grey. He was in Grey from, I believe, in stand 7, 8, 9, 10. They came from a small holding somewhere there in next to Bloem. But he grew up in Reitz in the Free State. And he was the OC, or he eventually became the OC of one special services battalion. And then he wanted to concentrate on his, I'm talking about my dad now, because that is my relation and my background. And he wanted to then resign from the permanent force, because he wanted to concentrate it on his studies, or not his studies. He already had his BSc degree by then, but he wanted to be a lecturer as well in geology. And then I believe that was the I don't know if it was Jannie Geldenhuys or Constant Viljoen, but one of them came to him and said, listen, yeah, but you can't just disappear. We want you to stay involved with the reserve forces. And then they said, okay, we offer you the OC of Regiment President Steyn. And I believe that my father would have been a very proud man today, because that regiment of his was the first Panzer regiment taking the elephant tank to war. So I believe he would be very proud of that. Coming back to my army experience is that, and as I really said, the guys that was on this legacy conversation, if I said to Ruda Landman in 2010, when we had that living with program with post-traumatic stress syndrome, I will do it only if I can help at least one person. If one person will become better listening to my story and be positive and getting healthy again. I believe that you can get healthy with medication and all that kind. But to me, and after talking to my rattle driver, and I don't know if you've had a talk with him, he's one of the most amazing guys I've ever met in my life. Annie Ferreira, HP, as I called him, and we're going to talk a lot about him now on the tour again with him. He's a walking freak, as I can call it that. He was shot from the back with we all believe that it is a 14.5 anti-aircraft gun that clubbed him from the side, from the back. He had about 90 odd operations in his life since those times. And he is such a positive guy. He is so inspirational. If you talk to him, he sees the lighter side of life in everything that he tackles. There's no, I believe if you talk to him and his wife and you go into the details, I believe there were times in their lives where they were very negative, and most probably that they decided, listen, this is the end. I mean, I can't go on like this. And his wife most probably said to him, listen, if you, as I know, if you don't get better, I'm going to leave you, or whatever. I don't know what happened in their close situation. But what a fantastic couple. And the fact that after all these years, they're still together, they've got amazing kids and grandchildren. He is just such an inspiration, and I don't really know why I started to talk about him, but my experiences in 1980, attacking during Operation Skeptic, attacking the so-called base of Smokeshell. I don't know if I must go into the detail of that now. Of course, you must. Okay, give me an indication. Okay, now. I don't know. That is one of the photos that I also can send you, just for explanation of the whole situation. The whole complex of Skeptic was about 13 odd target areas, and the air photographs that we had of the area of Skeptic was that. From the north to the south, it was about 12 to 15 kilometers, and from east to west, about 2 to 3 kilometers. And with anti-aircraft 20 millimeters and 14.5s very dispersed amongst those bases. I believe there were about 3 or 4 23 millimeters, and 14.5s, there were about 6, 7, 8 maybe. I don't know. I can't remember. But our information were 2 months old. The air photographs and all the information we got. So we worked with information 2 months old. And in that 2 months, the whole situation on the target area changed. They grouped together all the targets grouped together on the target area that I had to take out, and that was target number 11, 8, 9, and 11. That was our fighting force 2. The aim of taking out those targets. And what happened is the whole enemy force were concentrated on target 11. Now, target 11 was initially the transport park. There should have been a few vehicles that we had to capture and capture the target area. So when we drove in there, eventually it was alive and well. But we must go back to again when we had to go onto the target area. We were on the, as we call it in Afrikaans those days, the afmarslyn and the afmarspunt, the starting point, and all those, the attack point, and so on. When we were standing there on that point, and we got a order. Now the order in Afrikaans is laat vaai. The order in English is most probably, okay, go on, the attack starts. And from that moment, and even before that, the anti-aircraft guns were very busy shooting flak. And the Mossie, we call it the Mossie, that's, if you refer it to a little bird in the Free State, especially, you get the Cape Mossie, and then you get the other Mossie, a little bit lighter forms of grey. But the Mossie was an aeroplane, and most probably a Cessna or something that they reconned to officers that must bring us onto the target area. But the flak was so much that he couldn't bring us onto the target. And I didn't believe that he saw the target as well, because the whole area was just smoke and stuff. And I believe I believe they were flying about, say, 3,000 maybe higher. Couldn't see that good through the smoke. But so we missed the target, and to all the signs, the road signs that we were at the attack point, and then eventually we arrived at the riverbed. But in that period of time, we had a little bit of contact here and there, and not much. I'm writing a story now of our tour this year. 42 years and 1 month later, the 10th of July 2022, we were on the target area again, or on the target. And that first experience of fighting was not much. It was, I believe that was the old enemy. They were the old Greys guys. They had their rifles, but they didn't move fast, and we overran them quickly. But then when we arrived at the river, on the western side of the complexes, I believe that we missed the target. And the only reasoning that I had was I must turn a little bit north into the river, a little bit north, and then go east again. Then I would most probably be on target. And, you know, if the guys that read my story can go into that, at that stage, when I set up my platoon rattles in that riverbed, that is the ifs. The ifs started then. Shouldn't I, if I did that, shouldn't that be done? Or if I used my mortars, or if I have sent out people for reconnaissance, or whatever. But the if and the whys and that started mingling in my brain. But at a certain stage, I said my order was stop and step out of the rattles, meaning that the infantry must step out of the rattles so that we can start with an attack. And I immediately decided, okay, attack what? We haven't got a target yet. So if my guys go over this river wall and there's unforeseen circumstances, no. Stay in the rattles, we will drive over here and we'll see what's on the other side. And as we drove over that wall, we drove right into target area 11, scattering with the enemy. And it is believed, there wasn't final counts, that we drove with our 4 rattles into the enemy of about 800, 600 to 800 of the enemy. Now, to explain that situation to anybody isn't easy. People were running around, people were shooting. There were sharpshooters, what they call themselves, these guys. They were fastening themselves into the trees. I think that was orders given. They strapped themselves in the trees to make war. The food was still standing in the areas where they eat, and it was nicely done. It was sunken in the ground. The table were dug out like squares, and the fresh food was standing there. So we caught them at the hour where they was busy eating. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the attack started. So say 2:30 around. But what came to my mind now is that everybody asked me, or people always ask me, listen, yeah, but your target area, what was it like? How did it look? It was in the bush. It was and me and Wim Dippies had the long discussion again this year. It was a tactical headquarters of Fapla and Swap. So what that says to you, tactical. It was tactical. It wasn't a known piece of. It wasn't a town. It wasn't where 2 rivers met. It wasn't where 2 roads crossed or a road crossed a river. It was a tactical headquarters of Fapla and Swapo, and it was well. I always describe it from the west. They didn't expect an attack from the west, so they were well camouflaged from the west. They expected an attack from the east, as what we wanted to attack, as with what we planned. And then there's again the Afrikaans technical word that I can't find the English for is skotsvakke. but I'll type it in quickly here and I'll get back to that. But their squitsvakke were set out in an eastern direction. It seems like my computer isn't working anymore, but okay, we'll get to that. So,
Arcs of fire.
Say again?
Arcs of fire.
Arcs of fire. Thank you for that. Arcs of fire. Yes, that explains it in English. As I said to you, our training word in those days, it was totally in Afrikaans. I mean, the manuals for the rattle and everything was in Afrikaans. So we did our everything in Afrikaans. But the arcs of fire, and that is precisely what their arcs of fire were set out in say 180 degrees from north to south, but to the eastern side. So they didn't expect an attack from the west. And all of a sudden, here is 4 rattles riding into their camp from the west. It was chaos. The chaos started. Everybody was shouting over the intercom, and it happened so quick. But it felt like 10 minutes. I always say to people, 10 minutes. It felt like 10 minutes, but it started at say 2:30, and it lasted until about when it got semi-dark. So it was a long fight in hours, but it felt like 10 minutes. So in that 10 minutes, for me, my rattle got shot by a 14.5 anti-aircraft gun. The ammo in one of the doors started to explode. We all tried to get out of the rattle. One of the 14.5s ran through all 3 my radios, so I hadn't had any communication with nobody. And that stopped even before that, because my company commander, which on that stage were Armour, he had a difficult time the whole day. He was transferred from 1 to a 3rd rattle, and every time he had to set up again. So the communication to the fighting force to OC wasn't always there. But in any case, we got out of the rattle, and I said to the guys, listen, yeah, we jumped out of the rattle on the right-hand side. HP was skimping out there under the turret. And 3 of the guys got shot and fell back into the rattle. And those 3 guys got burned out. I mean, we had to identify their bodies with their dog tags the next day. The rest of the guys got out on the right-hand side of the rattle, because we just passed the 14.5 that shot us out on the left-hand side. So we got out on the right-hand side, so we jumped into the trenches. We were amongst the enemy there on foot. And luckily for us, the guys threw a lot of hand grenades. So the hand grenades really cleared the area in the vicinity of the rattle. And I said to them, listen, you stay here. I knew that my Bravo section were at our south from us. I had to get to them to get communication. I had to get to them to get at least a rifle. So I started running from my rattle in the direction of my Bravo section. And as I break through the bushes in their direction, my section leader of the Bravo section, Corporal Braithwaite, I'll always remember this. As I broke through the bushes, now I got out from a rattle that burned, some explosions, full of dust in any case. I broke through the bushes there, and I most probably, if you read or listen to Gareth Rutherford, he said, my Luti were there. He were burned and black, but he was all right. So I was burned and black, but I was still all right. But Braithwaite, as he saw me, he lifted his gun to shoot me. And I just threw my hands in the air and shouted, listen, yeah, it's me, don't shoot. And I ordered them to get out of their rattle, and we started fighting back towards the target area. Before I got to my Bravo rattle, I don't know how it happened, and there's a lot of stories still to be told, and I hope that one day we can put everything together, the whole puzzle. Chris de Klerk was one of the other platoon commanders, and his rattle stopped next to me, and I believe that story Willem Steenkamp also wrote about. And Chris said to me, "Listen, yeah, I must go back to my platoon. They need me." And I said to him, "Listen, yeah, it doesn't matter. I have to go back to all the guys that's dead. I must get to my guys that's still alive to fight the war further." And then he left, and he didn't even want to give me a gun. He thought, afterwards we spoke, and he said, if I have given Paul a gun on that stage, he most probably would have killed himself. But it doesn't matter what he thought. And I ran on and got to the Bravo section. We got out, and we started clearing the target area. I knew it was a big area. I know there was a lot of the enemy, but I had to get back to my men and the other rattles, and I don't know what to expect, or I didn't know what to expect. And as we got back to my rattle, on the way there, I found HP. He started, when I started running towards my Bravo section, he followed me. And they were shooting the whole time at us. So he got shot in that running after me. So when we got to him, I saw him, and I didn't believe he gonna make it. I believe that he wouldn't make it. So, and I believe still that we as a Christian, I believe at that stage, I can't remember the call sign. It's 9 Juliet or something like that. It was one of the ambulance rattles came in, and the door flung open, and in the door there was the doctor sitting. And I remember he was crying, and he was shouting to close the door. And me and somebody else, and I can't remember that guy, me and somebody else took HP, and we just threw him in the rattle, and the door closed, and off they went. So, and then it's on fighting towards my rattle. We got to my rattle, and I saw that there was 3 guys dead. Hubert, Venter, and Louw. There's a story about Hubert, but I don't want to go into that story. All I say is there were 3 guys that died in my rattle that day. So the rest of us, we did regroup there, and we fought down to my Alpha, to the section 1. And as we arrived there, the rattle was still idling, and the section were deployed outside the rattle, and Corporal Lawrence was the section commander there. And I asked what just happened there, and they said, no, Kemp was the driver. They got shot in the front window with either RPG or maybe a 23 mil, but I believe it was an RPG that hit the front window of that rattle, and glass pieces and stuff went into Kemp's face, and most probably he died from brain damage. So we took Kemp out and we laid him outside, but Fourie was one of the riflemen, was sitting on top of the rattle, and they were still shooting at us, and I was a little bit grieved upon it, or as some people would say. And I walked to the rattle, and I ran to the rattle, and I jerked his boot and said, Johan, you must come down the rattle. And he fell over. And by that time, I realized that he was dead. He was sitting on top of the rattle, but he was dead, and he was shot through his stomach, and he fell on top of my left shoulder. And that is we'll call it the views of war. There's a certain saying, something about war. So there was the 2 guys in my Alpha section that died that day, Kempi and Furiki. And then I saw my 3rd section rattle. I saw it standing next to a 23 millimeter anti-aircraft gun, but it was about 100 odd meters, 150 meters from us. So we had to clear that area as well. And so we started working in that direction as well, fire and movement, and eventually we got there. And that was total chaos with my Charlie section. They ran right into front full-on blast of the 23mm cannon. And the driver, Cronje, Paul Kruger, the gunner, and 4 of the riflemen in the back were shot out at that stage, and only Caforio. And that's another legacy conversation you have to have with Caforio. He call himself the Mal Italian, the mad Italian, but he is a great guy. I mean, he's a fantastic guy. Him and Van der Vyver was the 2 riflemen that they got out. Luckily, they got out of the rattle, the Charlie vehicle, and they hide. They hide at the back of one of those ant hills. The ant hill nearly got flattened by enemy fire, but they were safe. So yes, my Charlie section were totally in chaos. 7 dead, and the rest very badly wounded. Rods, my rattle, one of my motorists' rods, we had to carry. So as I took all the wounded that we could to the Alpha section, and we had a surround. We went into a surrounding defense mode, and then I started calling for help. I need help now because no rattle is running, and I just want to know where we are, what has happened, and nobody answered. And I called and I called and I called, and at a certain stage, as I said, Koos van Rensburg, that I knew from before school, he was a anti-tank commander of I believe 4 Rattle 90s. And they were supposed to be with us, but somewhere we got lost with all this communication that broke down. And he came over the radio, and in Afrikaans he said to me, but I'm going to say in English, he said to me, Paul, if nobody wants to come and fetch you, I will come. And his words were not cold when our company commander came in and said, because if you go in there, I will court-martial. So the fact of the matter is, we were on the target area, still being shot at from various directions. And then Dippies, or in those days he was a commandant, Dippenaar gave order to the OC of the engineer corps. I'm thinking what was his name, but in any case, his name will come to me just now. And he J.A.B. Swart, he was a major in those days, J.A.B. Swart, professional permanent force member from the engineers. Him and his rattles came in, and then we started gathering all the bodies and all the injured. And with him was one of my other friends, also a crew commander of 90 millimeter rattles, tank disposals, as we call them. I got into his rattle, and his rattle was the last rattle that left the target areas. But while we were gathering all the bodies and the wounded, the enemy forces started to attack us again from the northern side of the complex. And as I got into the rattle and we started to drive, now it was really becoming dark, and they shot that specific rattle with an RPG through the engine. So, yep, within 50 meters, there we stand on the target, and we can't go any further. And all the other guys just disappeared in front of us. Okay, and that was my, I call it my first night on the target. And this year I spent my second night on the target with the same demons. The demons in those days were the enemy. They knew that we were there. They wasn't most probably really. They didn't really, or wasn't really sure that what kind of power we had. Was our 20 mil still working? Was the 90 mil, whatever, still working? What other type of ammo we've got with us, but they came out and they shot at us throughout the night with RPGs, but luckily nothing hit us. And then our own forces also had the whole night, we call it in Afrikaans, kwelvuur, disturbing fire, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's a term that also comes from the First and Second World War. Throughout the night, our own forces bombarded the whole target area with the old 5.5 guns. And that was quite a sight, sitting in that rattle, and those projectiles explodes in the night a few meters from your rattle. That is quite a sight, and it's big explosions. So yes, that night we didn't sleep. Koos Moelman was a very, so he's also one of those guys that you can always trust and depend upon. And he said to me after a while, listen, Paul, and Raj, one of my wounded motorists, was with us in the rattle, and we didn't have any kit with us, any medical kit, so I couldn't give him anything. As Gareth said, morphine was at the disposal of anybody that had a headache. So there was nothing in the rattle, and Kobus said to me on a certain stage, listen, you find my infantry school bag somewhere there in the back of the rattle. There's a bottle of brandy in it. And as you know, a good officer is never far from a bottle of rum. I think that comes from the pirate days. So we also always believe that a good officer is not far from a bottle of brandy. We got the bottle out and we gave a doppie, the cap of the bottle. We drank, or everybody drank from the cap of that bottle throughout the night until it was finished. But in any case, that was our way of getting through the night. It was cold. It was in the middle of the winter. The nights got very cold. But I didn't think we felt the cold. I think the adrenaline in our bodies just was in survival mode. And then I said to Kobus, you know what, we are going to become a target if we sit in this rattle. We must leave. We must leave as soon as possible, as soon as we can see 10 or 15 or whatever meters. I can't remember what my explanation was. We have to leave. So early the next morning, it was still dark. We packed all the ammunition we can carry, all the food or whatever we can, the rations we can carry. And we started walking. Now we were about 10. I think we were 10 with Raj with us. Now we had to carry him. We couldn't walk. His whole leg was full of shrapnel. So 2 carried him, and the rest was trying to gear up if we have another contact with the enemy. And we walked until it was really light, and then all of a sudden there was this, and I believe all these things happen with a real aim from a higher hand. There was this choppers, the gunships coming over, and I had a radio with me, and I had in my pocket I had all the frequencies, and I tuned in on the one frequency of the Air Force. And yes, they all of a sudden the chopper guy spoke to me, and I said to him, listen, yeah, one of you has to come and land. Because we've got Raj with us, and he's making us a bigger target than what we should be. So they said, no, we can't. We've got 20mm guns. I said, I don't give a damn. One must come and land. So they said, okay, one will land. You must throw green smoke. I said, I haven't got green grenades. All I have is orange. I'll throw orange, but you know how these chopper guys or the Air Force works. They only land when there's green smoke. then everything is safe. They don't land when it's red smoke, not at all. And when it's orange smoke, I think they really they question our safety. But in any case, one landed, and we strapped rods on that 20mm cannon, and then they left. And I felt a lot better after that. I felt that we can move faster, and I knew in what direction we had to move. I knew where the roads was. We had good orders and warning orders, so I knew where we were. We had to walk about 25 odd kilometers to get to the road. We did that, and eventually, when we arrived at the north-south road, that was the initial entrance towards the complexes. I said to the guys, well, now we must do a type of stopping anything that comes on this road to get further. And I organized the ambush there with two stopper groups and the middle group and everything. And then all of a sudden we heard a vehicle coming. So I said, I'll shoot the first shot, and then everybody can fall in and we can take out whatever it is coming our way. And there was a buffle coming, as we call it, the buffle, with one driver in it. And I jumped out and I stopped the buffle, and I asked the driver, but where you off to? He said, no, he's off to go and fetch the echelon. Now, he had to drive all the way. There's no communication, it seems like. He had to drive from where the HQ, the temporary HQ was, to the echelon, tell them, hey, listen, guys, you must pack up and come towards the temporary HQ. So we all got onto the buffle, got to the echelon, said to the echelon guys, okay, we have to go back to the HQ, and then we drove all back with the echelon to the HQ. Well, as I arrived at the echelon, at the temporary HQ with Commandant Dippies there and General Viljoen, he was also there. They couldn't believe when I got from the buffle that our 10 guys were still alive. They thought we didn't make it. They were still looking for us. So we got off from the buffle, and General Viljoen came to me and he said, listen, yeah, you got a bad task to do. You must come and identify these guys. And we identified the guys that did, and they got flown off. What I didn't know in the meantime, that the day before, when we were after the attack, when we offloaded HP, he was flown with a chopper under heavy fire. The chopper picked him up and flew him out. Well, not heavy fire, as you look at the photos that he was walked to the chopper. Couldn't be heavy fire, but there was always some kind of fire from somewhere. It was hectic. I mean, if you read, I read the book of Willem, the newest one that got published. And it was a war. Isn't as Ep van Lille, he was our course OC when we did our first mechanized course. He said it's very organized until the first shot rang. So everything is organized and works according to the book. But if the first shot rang, then everything is chaos, and that stuck to me. And it was chaos. If you're a permanent force member, you most probably said, okay, it's going to be chaos, but I'll live with it. We lived with it for that period of time, and that's why I said in the beginning, legacy. A hero to me is a guy that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these type of experiences. He's a real war veteran. I mean, there were much bigger wars than we fought in those encounters, much bigger losses. But the story that I hope the story means something to somebody else that can't handle. One of the corporals of one of the anti-tank Rattle 90s. I know him very well. He was also in Bloom at school. They didn't see much of the action, but still he's got this psychological frame of mind that it's a problem for him. I take two of my troops also the psychological problems, but not only them. If my story can help somebody becoming better, and that is and that's what I wanted to say previously, and I fell myself into space. HB said to me what helped him, and that is a story that must be told. He went to see that priest or pastor in Nigeria. And if he tells you, him and his wife tells you that story, it is absolutely amazing. And he said to me, at one stage in his life, he had to have 7 morphine injections per day just to get rid of the pain. And that specific day, when they stood in that line to see the specific priest there in Nigeria, I can't remember what's his name. It's well known. Everybody wants to go and see him.
Joshua.
Yes, yeah, Joshua. He stood there, and all of a sudden he said to his wife, "You know what? If this guy can heal me, so can God." And he stood up. He stood from his wheelchair. He gave the wheelchair to the next black guy in line, and he said to his wife, "Now we're going to have a holiday." And then they flew off to a holiday. And what the message I want to give is that, yeah, medication can help you. Medication can help anybody, but your mind is most probably your best healing symptom or gland, or call it whatever you like in your body. Talking about these things, I haven't spoken about this for 28 years, until the first day in 2008. HB got hold of me. I don't know how still today. He got hold of me, he phoned me. And from that day, after first start speaking about what happened in 1980, I believe that is, in Afrikaans we call my rescue. That's my rescue. Well, medication is good for pain, and it's good for antibacterial infections, and call it whatever you like. But medication for the head, my firm belief is one. If you don't want to talk about it, I think you're going to stay sick for a very longer time. You have to talk about these things, and that is why I said again, and as you contacted me, I said to myself precisely what I said to Rita Landman in the past. If this conversation is going to help anybody, if anybody phones me or wants to talk to me, I will definitely try my utmost to help that guy and that person. There was this old couple in Pretoria or in Johannesburg. They one day phoned me also and said their son-in-law was with the parabats and he had a problem and he saw gruesome things, and they are scared for their 2 granddaughters and for their daughter, and I must talk to this guy. And you know what? I phoned him. I think I phoned him 3 times, and I also got him involved. I hope he's still involved with that group of veterans in Johannesburg, and he got involved with that. I got coffee. I'm getting served here. Thanks, Alan. I believe that talking about these things is okay. What I wanted to say is that guy. I've spoken 3 times with him. The first 2 times he didn't want to talk. The 3rd time we did talk, And I introduced him to a group of veterans in Johannesburg via one of my friends that's also with 6-1, Gert Minnaar. And he got, hopefully he got involved with that, because I didn't hear anything from his wife or any bad news. So if this can help anybody, I will definitely I will talk to them. I will help them. I'll try my utmost from my point of view and to my abilities that I have. And I'm not a great talker. I think in some respect or aspects, I'm a better listener. I said that to my wife a lot of time, and you know how it goes with women folk. They talk much more than us. But I believe still that it doesn't matter who it is. 6-1 Mechanized Veterans Association talks with our old enemies. We talk with the Angolan forces that fought against us. We talk with the Cubans. We talk with the Russians that fought against us. We were brothers. We brothers in arms. There's always the saying that old men plan wars, young men fight them. We were the what is on the chessboard, the front line. We were in Afrikaans, die pionne. You can look it up there because you're doing nothing now. We were getting pushed around by the politicians. We were getting pushed around, and that's what it is. That is history. It's part of history all these years. But we did it. We were, and I wrote down a few things that I wanted to tell you, is that we had respect even for the dead in those days. We had responsibilities. We had orders, and we did it. We were disciplined. We were so disciplined that I can't believe. But at the end, we were very privileged to be part of what we were before that, during that, and since that. We're very privileged people. Doesn't matter who you are. We're privileged even to take air into our lungs. If you look at what happens in Russia and up there with the war, it's so unnecessary. It's not worthwhile. But me and you can talk a lot about that, and I mean that is a long discussion on where are we going. Just taking in consideration respect, responsibility, discipline, privilege. I always wonder if you're a Christian, you understand it. But does a guy that doesn't believe, does he understand it? I don't know. It's the question I want to ask, and I see that you throw your hands in the air, and it's difficult. It makes it very difficult. So can I get a sip of coffee now?
Yes, please get your coffee. I was fascinating listening here to you. I believe we had Marco Caforio and Marco on.
Is it? Okay, I haven't looked at these. I listened to these.
It was very, very good. And of course, Gareth Rutherford, of course, something else there. But what I want to ask you at this stage, I know you were very busy during the actual attack phase, during the survival mode. Getting your men together, launching the attacks, and then getting out again. But while you were sitting in that rattle that night, what was going through your mind? Was it replaying? Were you thinking to yourself, well, I'm the officer, the box stops with me? Anything like that?
You know what? Of course, that is the question that I asked myself a very, very long time, and that night as well, and in 2022, the 10th of July this year, I'm writing the story of my second night on the target. And you know what? The thoughts that I had now in 2022 were most probably the same thoughts I had that night. should I have taken that decision on that time? Shouldn't something else happen? Should I have used my mortars before I crossed the wall of the river? Should I have done a reconnaissance? Should I have stepped out of the rattles beforehand? All those questions. What happened to this guy? I haven't seen him. What happened to that guy? Did they load him? Those questions were just, how are we going to get out of this? What are we going to do? Have we got enough ammunition? What is the plan? I mean, for 2 nights on the target, I didn't sleep. And this year again, I can tell you the next morning, Andrew Whittaker came to me. He was one of the other platoons, a rifleman. He came to me and he did a lot. He's still meaning a lot and doing a lot for 6-1 Mech and for me, and HBE means a lot for me as personally, as a person. And he does a lot of other good things as well. He came to me and he saw I wasn't all there on the 10th of July this year. And he sat down and he said, yeah, the demons worked with you throughout the night. And I said, yeah, you're so right. The demons were all over me. But what he also said is, Paul, you can ask the questions, what if, you can ask them for the rest of your life. If you haven't taken the decisions you have taken, you could have lost 33 other men as well. So, yeah, we lost 12. It wasn't supposed to happen. But then again, if the cynical part of war is, and that is Ep van Louw also, sometimes he texted us and he said, listen, when did you win the war? And there was a lot of answers for that question. The only question is, if you are alone standing on the target, then you win the war. If all the enemy is dead and all your people is dead and you are the only one alive, that is when you win the war. And that's a cynical way of thinking to it. But we lost 12 guys. As a matter of fact, we lost 13. But I believe man to man, we won the war. But we lost a lot of other things with it. That is also a discussion on its own. A war is the last. Is always in all cases. It must always be the last resort. It can't be. I've got the money. I've got the power. I've got the means. I've got the ammunition. I've got the aeroplanes. I've got it. I can make war. That must be really. But I won't be very much in the positiveness with the politicians if I say this. Politicians doesn't think about that. They don't. And we must most probably accept it, or if we don't accept it, we must try and change them. And that's going to be a hard job.
What you say is, all of this has to do with politicians effing off. Most of the wars could have been avoided. I mean, it was the American president, who was also the civil commander of the Union, of the Civil War. I'll get his name now, I just can't get it in my head right now. But he's the one who said that there was never a time when there was a need to draw your sword. He said you could always, resolve this in some way. And sadly, these politicians just don't think about it. Even the attack on Pearl Harbor, it was forced upon Japan by an 8-point plan run by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who were cultists. This thing happening in Ukraine, Ukraine, Russia, forced upon it once again because the Americans just kept on moving to borders. They kept on moving closer, kept on moving NATO against their own damn promises. And this is what happened. And the same with us. I mean, this could have been avoided, but it wasn't. And that's a sad thing about it. It wasn't. But you know, it's your friend. Well, I don't know if you know him, but Sarel Kutsia, who said last time, he said, we bought time. At the very least, we bought time for our children. And I always say, I cannot and I will not take responsibility for what happened afterwards.
That's
The
true.
army, the defense forces bought the time. When they go and screw up afterwards, it's not my fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
And it does not make our contribution valueless. Not at all.
No, that's for sure. You know what? In talks with, if you started talking with General Roland de Vries Umroli and all these guys, they were up there. They mixed with all the people up there, and definitely, if you listen to these guys, that has much more insight than what we've got or we have. Definitely, we bought a lot of time. We bought a lot of time for our kids and for our grandchildren. Firstly, secondly, I believe that the stability, the kind of stability that we have in South Africa it's to a large extent the outflow of that war that we have. But to come back to politicians, you know what? And I work with politicians on a daily basis, and luckily in my profession, we rewrote we were part of it over a period of 7 years. We rewrote our legislation in such a way that the politicians doesn't have the influence of taking a decision on a specific development. They can eventually, but through other processes. So, but the processes is there for the guys that's professional, and unfortunately, in the military, the people that's in command doesn't have the professionalism to be in command and to give the right order. And I'm not saying the military guys. The military guys are professionally trained. They know what to do. They know the tactics. They know the handbooks. They know the drills and everything. But the order to do the job comes from a guy that doesn't know that. And we can go into the history. That's, as you said, that's part and parcel of what happened in most cases. But as they say, in most cases, a war started either by a woman or by, I think most wars in the world started by a woman, and the other one is by having the land of your neighbor. I think that's the two major war inflictors in the world over all the ages.
I was told the other day, if people would just stick to the 10 commandments, there will not be war. There will not even be crime. It will be that simple. It must be even.
No, for sure. No, if everybody sticks to it, then most probably we will believe that we never know. For sure.
Yeah, I recall now my late wife was an American, and she was actually part of the US Navy, and she flew the F-18 Super Hornet at one stage. And then she said to me when I was about to immigrate to Florida, she says to me, "Honey, we need a rifle here." And I say, "What for? What do you want to shoot?" She says, "No, there's snakes, alligators, all sorts of things there in Florida." I said, "Okay, well, get a shotgun." She says, "But the neighbor has an M4, you know, this rifle of the US, one of the civil models." I said, "Well, in that case, we need one as well." And that is the stupidity of these type of things. You know, you built up something, they built up something. At some stage, you're going to clash.
Of course, there's one. Yeah, no, that's true. I agree with you totally. The last thing that I want to speak to you about is my second night on the target. We went on this tour, and you know what? There was a lot happening. We wanted to be there for the 40-year reunion in 2020, and due to COVID, everything got lost. And from Dippies and us didn't gave much attention to the tour. But here in February this year, I got this WhatsApp message from him stating that, "Are you guys ready for the tour? Your group, your WhatsApp group, are we going?" And I said, "Well, that's a quick one, but let's start." And we started organizing the tour. I wasn't very much, I think Umdipis wanted me to organize it, but due to my work, I'm too busy. And Andrew Whittaker took over from me, and he did a fantastic job from our side, here in the Southern Cape and the Eastern Cape side. But Jaap Steyn, that was a previous, also a previous officer commanding 6-1, he was the tour group leader, and he did all the organizing. And Jaap is a fantastic guy when it comes to organizing. He organizes anything. And it was also with HP involved. We had to take special precautions with medication, with transport and everything. And we tried to make it as easy as possible for him, due to that the wound on his back never healed. I mean, he was operated now past Monday, he was operated again on. In 3 weeks' time, he's getting another operation. And then in about a month or 2 or 3 time, they want to close the wound, finally. But he's not finished yet. So we had to take him in consideration. And Andrew said, but his son has got a Mercedes 350 ML. So that is a nice vehicle. They're going to drive with that vehicle from East London to the target area. So Andrew and his son and his son's wife, his daughter-in-law, they got into the vehicle and they drove up to Windhoek from East London. HP and his wife flew from Bloem to Cape Town. I got them in Cape Town. We three together flew up to Windhoek, and then we met Andrew there. So we drove with that ML all the way, and that was, I think, to a large extent, it's not a full 4x4. If it was a Toyota Land Cruiser or something like that, most probably HP would have just made half of the tour, because those things are hard and they rugged, and they can drive any place, but they're very, very, very rough. So I believe that the vehicle that we were driving in was to HP support. And what I wanted to say is, we got eventually, after 3 days, we got to the. I'm still writing this to give to one of our 6-1 guys to publish it on our website. But I call it a tour, but in the middle of this tour event, I call it the second night on the target. And it was, again, a very cold night. And I was thinking of what happened 42 years ago, and with all those questions and what ifs and so on. And through the night, you hear voices from the public, from the locals there, shouting. You hear a cow here, you hear a donkey there. What happened in those days as well? And then, as it will happen, and now that spun my mind nearly out of control. At about 4:45 in the morning, it was still dark. A shot rang out, a rifle shot. In about, I would say 200-300 meters from us, there was a shot. And I wasn't the only one that heard it. I mean, all the guys that was camping in that area that we camped, they heard it. Now, imagine that you're lying on the target area, there was a shot that was fired, and all those night events starts playing again in your mind. What are we going to do? Are these guys going to attack us again? This time we're in soft vehicles. We haven't got anything to defend ourselves. We've got women folk amongst us. What's the plan? No plan, nothing. Do you have to take the orders? Do you have to give orders? Do you have to evacuate? Where to? The roads are difficult. You have to pack. You can imagine, and that was part of the demons playing in my head in that in the second night on the target area, staying awake the whole night, working in my head what to do, how to address the situation. And I can tell you, if I have to go to that target again, it would be too much. One more time would but I won't go there anymore. I think the next day, as me and HP were standing there on the target area, we said to ourselves, this is the area. We came to say goodbye to our 12 brothers. We're there. But I believe, in 10 years' time or 5 years' time even, there would be nothing there. As you look at the kraals that the kraals that they've built, there would be nothing left over. They were not recognizable because they make the people of the area. They make they prepare the land for plantations and stuff. So what are we going to? Even I believe that they've got a certain of respect for the ditches and the trenches and areas where the anti-aircraft guns were standing. But even that would get under severe pressure for survival. Planting stuff that they grow there, making beer, making porridge, surviving. And that was one thing that amazes me. You find them everywhere, not grouped. Well, there's a lot of people. I mean, on Jiva, you won't. I didn't recognize Onjiva. Onjiva is a major town, but you find people in the rural areas settling all over. It looks like the Eastern Cape, as a matter of fact, far dense than the Eastern Cape. And that the southern side of Angola isn't a rich part of Angola. That's most probably the poorest part of Angola. So those people are going to have serious problems in future if they haven't got a source. And the source, I mean, the source can be anything. It could be economical, it could be agricultural. I don't know, but the resources. There's not much to have there, and the soil isn't that. It's sand. I mean, what grows in sand? Not much. So it's going to be a difficult. And as we all know, as the world know, that I believe that the daughter of the previous president of Angola, she stole the country to pieces. I mean, there's nothing. She's one of the richest women in the world. And I'm not sure what happened to her court case, if she's found guilty or not. We don't know. But if half of that riches that she stole could be spent in the southern parts of Angola, I would imagine that it would go a little bit better with those people.
I want to ask you about these tours. Because obviously you as a veteran has now gone with 6-1 week back to where the battle took place. And of course, if these people will conserve those battle sites, I think a lot more tourists might go there, which might be an income. I've seen that the Savati Afrika Battalion, they want to erect a memorial thing there. The Rekis did it actually with at the Eki. They got a cross thing there, which is very sacred to them. But if anybody else wants to go on these tours, are they welcome? What do they do?
Yes, that was one of the questions that also came out on this tour. No, definitely, they can contact 6-1 Mechanized Battalion or Veterans Association. All their contact details are on Google. But what I want to say is, I agree totally with you. I believe that to us, to me, to HP, and to the smoke, we call them the Smokeshellers. And the Smokeshellers, as we know, 6-1, I believe there was Rekkies, Parabats, Tuffies, chefs. They didn't even know it, but they were part of 6-1, because 6-1 was the main reaction force from the South African Defence Force in those days. So you get dealt off to 6-1 to operate with it. So to the Smokeshellers, unfortunately, as we know, that the Parabats hadn't had for their choppers, they didn't have after for the for the stopper groups to be employed, or what is the word I'm looking for? They had to be dropped off as stopper groups on all the roads, on the exit roads from Smokeshell. But at the temporary HQ at Molemba, the first HQ, the AFTA didn't arrive. So the parabats never left Molemba during the fight on D-Day. They only arrived on the target area, I think D+1 or D+2, when they had to help with the organizing and get all the stuff together to take back to South Africa that we got from the enemy. But what I wanted to say is the 4 parabats that was with us now on tour was the first parabats that arrived on the target area. And you know what, it seems like they had a lot of respect for us, and I've got a lot of respect for them. Merely the fact that they were willing to go and see what was Smokeshell all about. Okay, to get back to that quickly. Yes, for tourism-wise, I believe that if the site gets managed on a regular basis, yes, it could be a tourism attraction. We did plant a monument there, and it is, I believe, if you haven't seen it, I will send you a photo of that as well. The monument is there with that little bit of written on it by one of the old 6-1ers, and all the names of the guys that died there. And the piece that was written there is written in Afrikaans, English, and in Portuguese. So the people of the area, and the words of that written piece, and who was this guy that, yes, I can't remember his name now, that wrote it, but I can also send that to you. He was an ex-permanent force member, and he's now a guy that writes a lot of stories, and I've spoken to him about a week ago. You want my story before this weekend, so I must still write my second night on the target area. But we've got the 6-1 Veterans Association. It's got such positive input from the Angolese government, and also from that, call it the head of that local population in that area. He was there. As a matter of fact, he was an ex-FAPLA member. He speaks fluently Afrikaans. He can understand English, but naturally he can speak Portuguese as well. But he said when Jaap and Dippies went and they prepared the area the previous day, he came there and he said they want to go and cut down some poles already. So when Dippies asked him for what, he said they're going to plant the poles around the monument, and they're going to put fence around it and make it a tuck kraal, a branch kraal, for the cattle not to walk over the monument. Now, that is a good sign. But that guy is also my age, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, I don't know. The question is, our children's children, history, their history, would their people be able and willing to keep that in place, to keep that little bit of history there and in place? That is the question. And if we can manage it, I believe through 6-1 MEC, we must do it. If we can't do it anymore, then somebody else, our kids or somebody else, must take over and maybe register it as part of the Heritage World Association, or I don't know. I haven't got the answers yet, but I think 6-1 will eventually get to an answer of how are we going to. I mean, there's monuments all over the show. Next year, 6-1 wants to do all the battles that they did within Namibia. They want to do that, and they're going to, and that's also a major thing that we want to do with the Namibian government, as we've seen that, you know, there's a little bit of ructions in the Namibian government at this stage. So that is type of team building with those guys, and then we most probably later on concentrate on Angola again. But I believe that our guys are willing. I believe that we've got a hell of a good of a committee at this stage, driving 6-1 to where it is at this stage and what is going on. The guys like Johan Boysen and those guys, they know what they're doing. They talk directly to the government people in Namibia and and Angola. So yes, I believe it can be done. And we as old boys, we must stand together and help where we can. I was a little bit negative just now, stating that I won't go there anymore. I most probably will. But I can tell you, I will go in much better class than the previous 2 times. But if I can afford it, said with it. But I believe we can make a difference. We can still make a difference.
Hello, Internet. We come to the end of the most interesting episode for me. I want to say this to you again. If you have a problem, psychologically speaking, don't go to your back room and sit there and talk with his heart. Don't do that. That's where Satan's going to get you from behind. Go to your mates. Go to your associations. Put your beret on. You don't have your beret anymore, find a beret. Go to these parades. Go to the Skouwerskure. Go and speak to people like Colonel Louw here. Just come and get out of that cloud of darkness, because you're not going to get out of it yourself easily. No one is that strong. And if you need professional help, get professional help. If you can't afford it, well, you know, contact me. I can put you in contact with a psychologist who will definitely help you for free, if it's deserving. And if you follow the rules, of course. Everything in life is like that. You can't just sit there and think people are going to pick you up and carry you around. You have to do something. And the other thing you can do is listen to legacy. Because when you listen to these people talking and you hear them and they've gone through what you've gone through, it ought to make you feel better. And if you feel like it, come and talk to me. Come and tell me. Open your heart. Come and tell me what bothers you. There's an open invitation to everybody. And at that note, I will say to you, God bless until we meet again.
First, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate that, firstly. And secondly, for the job that you guys are doing, that is absolutely amazing. I've listened to a few of the conversations. And to my mates out there, the brothers in arms, it doesn't matter what war you fought, what uniform you had on. We're all the same at heart. As Chris said, let's talk to one another. Let's be real brothers in arms. And Godspeed and whatever comes to mind. Let's talk to one another. Thanks, Chris. It was a pleasure.